Hello and welcome to our newest VCD Roundtable episode. And it's not episode number 57, which it said downstairs, down and below, but it is episode number 58. And now we updated that as well. And that being said, it's another CSP update session today. We hope that we don't need to do that many anymore, but it feels like Broadcom continuously wants to keep us all busy and make constant changes to the program. But we did not only wanted to talk a bit about the potential changes for the program, but more, what could these potential changes in the end also mean to the future of Cloud Director, which is the main topic of this podcast, actually. So the point is, even though this is a public podcast, we don't have any issue anymore to talk about this in public because there is enough media talks already all around the globe. So it's no longer a trade secret or NDA or anything else. By now, it has been in different magazines. Broadcom has, and this is where it gets really interesting, discontinued the CSP program for the majority of CSPs with a few exceptions. So on one hand, in different geos, they handpicked some CSPs, and I would really say hand or cherry-picked in this case because it's a really small amount. From what we heard, it's less than 5, not even half that much for the complete Gulf region, including North Africa. So Middle East, Turkey, and North Africa in total has clearly less than 5. From what we hear, Canada also, I think, was also less than 5. And less than 5 means anything between 1 and 5. For North America, I'm still trying to collect numbers. There is a huge exception at the moment for Europe. But from what we learned, the exception for Europe is really only for Europe because we have partners in Switzerland who also got the notice already. So it's really, really an interesting time. That is the main change. As we had several talks and also as some media actually put this wrong out there, is Sasha, can you mute whatsoever? You have a massive echo. Okay. So with all of that saying, there is a big misunderstanding at the moment from what you read in media, and clearly this is, I would say, pushed by some of the competitors as well. The program does not end on the yes and no. The program ends on the 31st of October, but there is one very, very important part with that. That does not mean your contracts end by that day. Your contracts still run the full runtime, which is at least at the bare minimum for everybody, 31st of March 2027. In some cases, it might even be longer because people have originally signed up for 5 or more year contracts already. So there might even be a longer time period. And it is also very clearly stated by Broadcom that up until your contract end date at the bare minimum, you will be allowed to add cores, add-ons, and everything else. You cannot just actually create new contracts. That's the only change. So take that as a given. There is a lot of storyline currently going on out there, and I would clearly say a lot of people have stopped reading classes after a second grade or something like that, based on a lot of the BS you see out there. But that is the only facts we have as of today. My personal feeling, and I've wrote that and said that now in many statements already, is that there will be a path where existing CSPs can still consume VMware licenses. How that path is going to look like is something where I have a few good ideas. I have something which we think how this is going to work. But to quite clearly validate that, we are currently collecting information from CSPs who want to actually go on that journey together with us. and that is currently being evaluated. So if you want to join that, find the form and fill it out. But I have the strong feeling there will be a solution for those who are actually going to continue. But that is status quo. At this point in time, no one has seen any new legal contracts, so no one knows how exactly this is going to look like. But what I only can suggest to anybody is, like, don't go into panic mode. There is, compared to many other things, plenty of time at the moment. Yes, 27 comes pretty fast, but again, there is no immediate need to rush anything at the moment. We have at least a couple of weeks to take serious decisions and don't fall into the pitfall of some who actually just want to rush away. Because the other part of the Broadcom contracts is clear. You have a payment obligation up until that date as well. So if you now rush into a different solution, you are paying for two solutions. So that is another reason to potentially just look for alternatives if you really want to, but don't rush into a decision as long as you don't fully understand the legal consequences. So that was more or less the legal part and the status quo. And as you can imagine, our phones are in constant mode. I think we have 2-3 meetings at least every day, if not more, with CSPs who are in complete panic mode, especially due to the fact that people write this the wrong way around out there on the news. Broadcom told us that a consumption pass is not being considered. Yes, that is currently the note. But again, trust me, I have strong beliefs and strong reasons to think there is a solution for that. But I can't share anything at the moment, at least not on a public podcast or anything else. There is a very good reason why we think there is a pathway for that, and why we also think that we are going to be part of that pathway. But we can't share that on a public channel or anything like that. We need to be pretty restrictive with that pathway. So that being said, this is the VCD Roundtable, and we said we don't want to do that many legal talks anymore. And so I wanted to actually start the discussion today with a bit more of a, let's say, provocative theory in all of this, because the question is, if Broadcom decides, and if I'm taking the comment which just came in that Broadcom says there is no future consumption pass serious, and if I look at the timelines and everything else, the question is, why would Broadcom in one way or the other actually even consider to even spend any money or time or effort anymore on Cloud Director or a replacement version of Cloud Director? Because for only a handful of CSPs, that does make even less sense than the current approach, than rather actually build a few features, maybe here and there, into VCF Core, and maybe a few adjustments to VCF automation, and then off we go, and everything else they just don't care about. So that provocative idea thrown into the room. Sasha, Matthias, what's your opinions? Who wants to go first?
So the consumption path, honestly speaking, and again, this is neither ComDivision nor Broadcom knowledge, opinion, whatever. That's just my opinion. If you take a closer look into the VCFA, the current version, and the underlying infrastructure VCF, I still think that Broadcom won't invest anything into VCD, and we know that VCD will go away sooner or later. Yes. Looking into and I'm highly provocative as well, speaking about VCFA, it's ARIA automation. Nothing has changed except 1 or 2 features. VCFA 9. I have currently no idea how they try to bridge the gap in VCFA towards the whole IaaS part for self-service and consumption. It's still the whole deployment stuff, cloud template stuff, non-usable stuff. It's not non-usable, but it's not very, very handy for daily business. I have no clue how you would like to bridge the gap. I have no idea.
But yeah, so my thesis was actually considering the VCFA as a replacement for VCD, that they would not necessarily spend too much effort in actually replicating VCD functions into VCFA.
Oh, they will.
Because the service provider count
I
is
think it's service provider independent, because Hawk has a very clear vision that you run your on-prem infrastructure as a private cloud, and as we're all aware of, cloud is just a consumption model. The consumption model implies self-service and so on and so forth. So you need to provide a portal enabling you as an infrastructure or as a company running infrastructure to provide a portal for self-service and not to get a third-party solution or build your own portal. So that's nothing you could estimate from your customers.
Absolutely.
The majority of the customers.
But the big question is, I think also after all the discussions in the last months, I think they will create a portal, they will create self-service. But the biggest question is if we will get self-service only for dedicated workload domains, or if we will get self-services also for shared workload domains.
VCFA is workload domain independent. So it always was, right? You have your projects and all the other fancy stuff in VCFA. So it's not a workload domain cluster, whatever. That's not a unit we're talking about anymore. So we're just consuming resources. The question is, how are people enabled consuming resources? Can I consume it on a really resource space like CPUs, memory, storage, whatever, or am I using a more agnostic approach via a templating mechanism, which I can use only to deploy services anymore and not single object and manage single objects like a virtual machine? On the other hand, if you look at VCFA currently, you have the whole deployment service area. The second area is highly focusing on containers and VKS, which is, it's a use case, but honestly, containers are still not the majority of first-class citizens. It's virtual machines. Not every single application runs on containers or in containers. So the third pillar is missing, which enables a self-service multi-tenant infrastructure to consume basic IaaS. They're trying to build it in NSX currently with the whole VPC and transit gateway, and I have no idea how many gateways we now have. If you look under the hood, we still have T0s, T1s, that's it. Nothing changed in NSX itself. It's just different namings and different combinations of T1s and combinations of existing features we have. And they're introducing some features via NSX, but that's what they call multi-tenancy, but it's not multi-tenancy. It's just network separation. That's it.
Yeah.
And I love the statement. Sorry, a quick joke. We now have infinite IP addresses. I love that marketing term. It's amazing, right? In 2025, they came up with the cool idea. Oh, you could use NAT on a T1 to separate IP spaces from each other. Very interesting. That's brand new concept. But sorry.
I told you, I will go into retirement before I have to learn IPv6.
No, but so I think the whole IaaS part is still missing.
Yeah, and additional to that, you must be very careful if you go with VCF9 and the VCFA stuff. So not all configurations, not all architects are available. So there are some day zero decisions you need to take, and you must be really careful on your design, on the complete architecture. What will be your use case for this environment? And then take your decisions if you want to go with VCFA. Because also from a network perspective, but also from a workload domain perspective, there are some points you need to take a deeper look. So we are currently working on a matrix. So because the first customers want to try VCF9 in production now. And yeah, we are figuring out all of that part. Maybe that can be a topic of one of the next roundtables.
It is an interesting approach at the moment, and interesting discussions going on around all of this. And I'm with Matthias that VCFA is currently so far away from providing the same IaaS, especially the same simplicity as we had it with VCD. You potentially build something which is very near to it, but it's more or less a complete one-off scenario you have to build in every single instance. Whereas VCD was more or less a drop and forget product, because there was not that much customization within VCD. If the NSX design, if the underlying storage and everything else design was done properly, there was not that much to do on the VCD side, actually, in comparison to VCFA, where just the baseline setup by itself is a masterpiece. And as Sasha said, there is a hell lot of decisions you are going to take, which you better fully understand before you regret them later. So this is where it really gets interesting. And I think is as we are going to move along, for me, the big question is like considering especially the statements Matthias made. The big question is like, how much effort is going to be put in building that IaaS framework now? I still believe there is a huge demand for customers, because I think that is what is misunderstood. It's like the VCFA solution by itself is not bad, but the problem is that is a solution which needs to be customized for every enterprise customer. It's nothing which really works out of the box as it should be, and it's not the experience many customers are going to expect when they deploy VCF and expect a private cloud for themselves, which they can just start using. It's like, because VCFA is going to sit with a lot of question marks in front of you, and it's a bit like running into an SAP S/4HANA implementation without knowing anything you are going to do, and saying it's like, yeah, but we bought an ERP system, it should work now. This is not how this is going to work.
But the thing with VCFA is you consume a service. What's great, but service deployment and service-centric infrastructure only makes sense if you deploy the same service over and over and over, like 100 times for different customers. If I think about even a huge enterprise, they run an application. They may have 3 stages of the same application, like test, Q&A, and production, whatever, but they're not running the same service 100 times because it doesn't make any sense. So the service approach won't be a good fit for those companies. And there are many companies out there, especially talking about the new Broadcom strategy. But the clear vision is using VCF as a private cloud product. And cloud implies the consumption part and self-service. That's how you run the infrastructure. So that's something I really miss in the current solution. And looking forward to saying in the future, all workloads will be containerized. Yeah. I think that's the same with the IPv6 story. Not that long, but it will take years and years and years. And not that many companies are shipping their applications in a containerized form factor. So most is shipped as an either installable or an OVA, so which is a plain virtual machine, which I need to fit in my infrastructure. But I currently, with VCF9, don't have a self-service portal to deploy those workloads.
I'm totally with you on that one. It's a bit like, I remember, I started with web services in '96. Back then it was very rudimentary, very basic, but I think already before 2000, people were running around and saying it's like, we don't need Windows anymore because within the next 1 or 2 years, everything is going to be a web application. If we look at the calendar, we have now 2025. And
that's
we are
your
now,
opinion.
we are now getting slowly to the point that a lot of applications are really good as web applications and are usable as web applications. But that is more or less 25 years behind the timeline. I'm not saying that containerizing applications and making applications Kubernetes enabled and stuff like that is going to take the same amount of time. But I'm also with you, Matthias, on that one. I would not be that optimistic that all the legacy applications would be switching that quickly. It's like we wouldn't have mainframes and a lot of other things still. All of that would be that easy and that simplistic, especially when we are looking at the medium-sized to large enterprises. Small businesses potentially because they can switch to SaaS services and something else, but then they wouldn't still run it either by themselves. But as soon as you come to medium enterprises, when I look at production companies we have in Germany, chemical companies, even when you look into the medical, insurance, healthcare, all of these areas, there is so much legacy stuff going on that it will take years to actually move this off the platform. And in some cases, it will only happen once hardware and everything is replaced. And that, when we talk about medical equipment, can be 10 to 20 years.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's not just as some others promote, it's not just lift and shift. I saw what happens if you do lift and shift. You just install an application in container, done. Like, no, that's not how it works. So just grabbing an application, say, right, I just port it or I just migrate it to containers. That's not the solution. You need to build the application from scratch to really use all the advantages you get from containers. So I think that will consume a lot of time. The big application vendors, they have a massive workforce. They have enough developers to change and to redevelop their application on a containerized infrastructure. But if you have a small or mid-sized application development company, they don't have the workforce needed to do that.
But let's play a little game. Considering we know that VCD is going to disappear, that's a given fact. That was even before
we could neglect it.
So considering VCD is going to go away, considering also that potentially making the necessary adjustments to VCFA are not going to happen or not going to happen in the speed necessary, what do we think CSPs are going to do? Are they building their own platform? Are they switching to one of the VCD competitions out there, which is actually not that many? And the last time I looked at them, many of them lack functionality here and there.
Honestly, I could foresee some sticking with Cloud Director, even though it's not there anymore. They just keep it as an intermediate API and put a different front end on top. Done.
How do you want to do that? By mid of 27, vSphere 8 runs out, and as long as we don't get vSphere 9 support for VCD, you are basically, I mean, you could do that. We have enough customers who are still on NSXV at the moment, so you could do that.
So,
but
exactly. So that's something what I see could happen. I'm not saying it's legal or anything. It's just it could happen. I could foresee that some are trying to build their own multi-tenant UI in front of a vCenter and provide vCenter access like a proxied solution, like comparable to Cloud Director, because Cloud Director has the CPOM built in, and that's kind of a solution which could be built. Maybe, but you can't solve the networking part. But now with the VPC and the NSX integration in the vCenter, you could solve it that way. So you can just kind of add the multi-tenancy layer in front of a vCenter, and then you could build a shared workload domain. And option B, from my point of view, is dedicated workload domains per tenant. That's it. And you just take the decision Does the tenant have a dedicated NSX, shared NSX, or no NSX? But shared might not be the best option for networking infrastructure if you have only a vCenter and nothing additional to deal with the whole network multi-tenancy stuff. So you need a massive management cluster or a massive management domain to run all those virtual machines for the workload domains. But because if you scale, let's say, up to like 25, 30 workload domains, and I don't know what the limits are, you have like 3 NSX managers per tenant, a vCenter. So it's 4 virtual machines. If you have like 30 workload domains, we're talking 120 virtual machines just to run the base management of the workload domains. And the NSX managers consume a boatload of resources. So you need a massive management domain.
Yes.
And therefore you pay licenses. As Fabian would say, ka-ching.
Sasha, any other ideas from your end before we potentially close today's session?
Yeah, I think so we have more or less every day currently these discussions with the different service providers, and we see some ideas. So them that clearly, hey, we still have our portal, what we have in front of Cloud Director. Maybe we change the configuration to configure it directly in the background, put more resources on top of it. Other ones searching for some other tools like Cloud Director. They are not Cloud Director, and all the service providers are not happy to search for these products. But they clearly said, hey, currently it's difficult. No one knows what's the future of Cloud Director. If there is a future with VCFA, if they have a future in the VMware Service Provider program, because that's also currently only VCSPs are able to use Cloud Director. They only have the licenses. There is one more option currently with if a customer bring their own licenses. VCD is also allowed. That was new in one of the new documents. But overall, we need to take a look. So it's, from my perspective, a hard time for the service providers. No one knows what happens on top of it, all the European ones, or all the ones in the EEA or European Union. They are clearly on a stage where hey, we are on the one side, we are happy that we are in currently, but nobody knows what happens in 1 to 3 weeks, 1 to 3 months, 1 to 3 years. And that's really, really difficult. So from my perspective, if I were a service provider, I would, maybe wait a few more moments. And if everything is settled a bit and we get more information, then we are able to take decisions for the future.
And I think it's overall, we need to see what's going to happen. But I think this is an interesting switch, an interesting change. And we just, at the moment, we can just sit and wait. But I just wanted to throw this idea and discussion out there. Then we can only hope that we hear in the next couple of days, weeks from Broadcom, not only the details about new contract structures and everything else, but also all the details around the fact on what is going to happen to the future roadmap plans for VCFA in regards to building a true IaaS platform. Because as said, it's like, if we take the comment which came from the audience that Broadcom really truly considers to cut down the CSP program to, let's say, 200 CSPs globally, then you cut out those from which are only doing dedicated hardware, then it leaves it down to potentially 50 to 100, leaves the big question mark if that justifies the effort of actually building the IaaS platform as they was in VCD or just something else in VCFA. But I think that is one of the driving factors in this whole discussion, is like how much shared workload is going to stay after this change is complete and we fully understand the consequences out of the change. At the moment, as said, my personal feeling is that there will be a different route to market left open. Again, we can't share that here on a public podcast, but I have very good reasons to believe so. And then we see what's going to happen. Any closing
I
words?
would say as famous last words, we have 2 time frames currently on the horizon. So my personal opinion is, I think we will have some more information around VMware Explore in Vegas, end of August. So I hope that there will be a clearer statement. And I think the second time frame on the horizon will be the end of October, beginning of November time frame. And the justification behind that is because around that time frame, the VMware Explore on tour starts, so that they might release some information around these dates. Because I think that the one in Frankfurt is 11th of November, if I got it right. But so these are the timeframes I currently talk about and say that's my opinion, and I think we should wait until beginning of November 25 before taking any big decisions. It's not saying do not look into other solutions, just say wait until you make a big decision.
Sasha?
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, take a look what's on news in the next months. It will become very interesting. Contact your VMware guys. Also, if you are unhappy with the current situation, if you're happy, so directly that Broadcom gets this feedback, I think that's an important part. Show to Broadcom what are your customers really, because that's important to argue for the CSP program. Or give this information to us and let us communicate that to Broadcom. What customers behind your services? I think that's a big and an important part for all of you.
Wisely spoken. That is something we constantly suggest, is like be more verbal about what you do, how you do, and what your customers are. Because I think Broadcom misunderstands small core count with, hey, they don't have any relevant customers. We know many of you, we know how much of a niche player you are, which is also why we collect a lot of that information as part of our discussions currently ongoing with Broadcom, and why we ask our CSPs who are going to work with us in the future to actually fill out these forms. As much information as we have, the better we can actually provide a clear picture to Broadcom on what's really going on. We will definitely keep you posted on this podcast on all the latest and greatest on what's going to come up. We will keep you posted in regards to what exactly the future is going to look like from our perspective. We hear the news that people constantly keep saying there is a huge move off the platform. Interesting enough, all the talks we have with management at many CSPs in the last couple of days tell us a completely different story. Again, that might depend on what the vision and part from the CSPs are. Some even actually just signed a design and other implementation projects with us. So again, this is what always happens to the market. We will see what's really going to happen in the end. And we hope this was somehow entertaining and got you up to speed. And hope to see you again next time. See you. Goodbye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.